introduce Dr. Erfan. I mean, I know him from the days we met in Toronto. He's a brilliant scientist and worked in the industry for more than 2 decades. He got his education from Karachi University and got his PhD from Germany, has experience kind of like worldwide from Canada to Pakistan to Saudi Arabia. So it's a pleasure and honor to introduce him. You will know more from him. But I will say, and then with me as a panel is Dr. Azhar. Everybody knows him very well. And I will say, I will start with this. The cream of our country goes for medicine. And they are brilliant. They understand the anatomy. They master the physiology and understand the disease and their mechanism. And when patients come to their office, they are perfectly positioned to diagnose, and then the person who is suffering, what they can do is they can prescribe the drug and then hope for the miracle. But of course, the miracle will happen only if the drug is effective and is of quality. And that's really the topic of today, because we waste our talent if the drugs which doctors can prescribe are not of quality. So with that, I hand over to Dr. Erfan, and he will walk us through how the quality is built in the product and why the quality of the product is important when we treat the patients. Dr. Erfan, to you.
Assalamu alaikum, good morning, good evening, good afternoon to the participants. Thank you very much, Dr. Umar Ayad, for this introduction. I think you already told a lot about me, so I would not waste much time in further introduction of mine, and I will just go straight into the talk. Let me just share my screen now. Okay, first of all, thank you very much, Dr. Uzair Ghani, who was actually behind this presentation. He's the one who actually persuaded me to talk about this. I don't know how many of you, the participants here, belong to the pharmaceutical industry, but apparently most of you belong to the physician side, the clinicians. And it was his idea to talk about the basics of the medicine manufacturing, so as to enhance the confidence level of the doctors who are prescribing these drugs, and let them be sure of the quality, efficacy, and safety of the medicines that they're prescribing, and that the patient is actually getting the right product. So his opinion was to, this will be a good effort to enhance the confidence level. Although the inventor introduces the molecule to the market or to the manufacturer, the doctors just prescribe them. The pharmacist, the retail pharmacist, sells them to the patient, not knowing much maybe, or not maybe much bothered about what is in the pack that they are. It's simply that they know, the doctors know the pharmacological action of the molecule that they are prescribing, and the pharmacist knows that he's selling what the doctor has prescribed. But it is good for them to know that there are a lot of efforts to make sure that a person who's buying paracetamol is actually buying paracetamol and not losartan potassium. Well, that's a very worst example, and I hope doesn't happen. But let's start with this, that how the quality is actually built in the drugs. So we generally call it good manufacturing practices. It's a very small word and very small terminology known as GMP, commonly used in the pharmaceutical world. But what it is and why it is important, why it is critical. So basically it's a system to ensure that I just said the product, that a patient is buying the product he must be ensured that he's buying what actually he needs and what he desires. And it is meeting, so the products that are being produced, they are controlled according to the quality standards that are actually established before stepping into the manufacturing processes. And it minimizes the risk that is involved in any pharmaceutical production that cannot be eliminated through testing the final product. Okay, the last sentence is very, very critical. Note this, that cannot be eliminated through testing the final product. And I will later shed some light on this word, on this sentence actually, that what does that mean? Okay, that's a small kind of thing that GMP is also known as CGMP. Basically, GMP is the good manufacturing practices. It's a regulation that was designed and established by the US FDA. And obviously, I mean, it is established all over the world. And it is also called as CGMP, the current good manufacturing practices. 5 factors: people, procedures, products, premises, processes. So what and how people are important for GMP? They have to be qualified, they have to be experienced, they have to be trained, or a combination thereof. You have to be appropriately or the most fittingly, qualification that you must possess before you get into the pharmaceutical world to as a production guy or as a quality guy, even regulatory or R&D, whatever. So you might be qualified and experienced, but may not be trained, or you might be qualified and trained, but not experienced. So it has to be a combination of thereof, these 3 factors. Now, what are the 5 factors of GMP? The other one is procedure. So step A always go into step B, and step B is going to produce the results. So it has to be an approved procedure. You just cannot write a procedure and you just go on to practice over it. It has to be approved one. It needs to be simple, precise. There is no ambiguity in the procedure, and controlled. Not everybody can make a procedure. Not everybody can, publish a procedure or can use it without any specific control over it. So it has to be controlled, and we will get to know what does that mean, what control documents are. So quality nightmares. You asked for a copy of our approved vendor list. Primary materials, products. By saying products, we actually mean primary materials, which are the raw materials from qualified and reliable sources. Now, if we talk about the primary materials, we are actually talking about the vendors, the API manufacturer, which is active pharmaceutical ingredient manufacturers. I have recently published a book on this, Pharmaceutical Vendors Approval Manual. I think just 6 months ago, it was published from CRC Press, Taylor and Francis Group in USA. And to tell you the truth, if I just start talking about this, we may spend about 4 to 5 hours just explaining what this approval of vendor means. So you cannot just buy the product, the raw material from any X, Y, and Z manufacturer. It is a whole lot of a procedure. It's a protocol that you have to follow, and you have to pass through it. And then you decide that, okay, this is the manufacturer that I'm going to buy my example is commonly used, paracetamol. It has to be quality, and efficacy has to be, obviously, there is no question about it. It has to be cost effective. Certainly, there is always a commercial aspect in everything that you work for. Availability, and you make sure that it is available when you're going to make it, when you're going to make the product. So you have to make sure that the vendor is reliable, and he will make sure that the material is available when you actually need them. Premises and equipment. Avoid cross-contamination. It cannot be as ugly as this one. It has to be obviously aesthetically good. And obviously there's a lot of things like environmental conditions have to be under control, especially designed, so it can avoid cross-contamination, qualified and validated manufacturing and analytical equipment. You will come across this word validated, validation very frequently when we talk about pharmaceutical processes or we talk about the GMP. So qualification and validation will, come into contact a lot of times. So and you will see that when we talk about anything, we talk about qualification and validation, and we will know exactly what it is. So we have to have the qualified and validated manufacturing and analytical equipment. So not just manufacturing equipment, but also the equipment that we are using to analyze the raw material and to analyze the final product or the finished product or in-process product. Process, manufacturing and analytical, both. Again, they have to be validated process. So you can see that you may not come across a surprise during the process, an undesirable situation, an undesirable product when you are going through a certain process. So it has to be validated process to ensure there is no surprise, there is no negative impact. Approved and written instructions. Again, every process has an instruction, and that has to be in written form, and it is approved by quality people, by certain controlling authorities. And qualified operators. Again, the operators have to be qualified. Now, this qualification does not necessarily mean that he is holding a PhD or Master of Science or Pharmacy or something like that. It means that he is qualified for that particular operation. Also means that he is also a validated operator. And the testing methods, they also have to be validated. So you make sure that what you are testing to prove that the tablet has 500 milligram of paracetamol, or it's 99% of paracetamol, if not exactly 100%, then the method that you are using to test and analyze also has to be validated to make sure it is not giving you a false result. Now, the 10 principles of GMP. Defined operating procedures and work instructions to establish controlled and consistent performance. What does that mean? It means that the approved SOPs are available with integrated document management system. Again, we are using the word here, management system. So you will see that there is a complete system operated by a particular department who always and only manage the documentations of the company. SOPs and work instructions are available for users to reference at the point of use. That is another very important principle of GMP. Prompt and accurate documentation of work for compliance and traceability. Data entered is recorded directly in the database at the time of entry. It will also be reflected in the word these days we are commonly using, data integrity. So data integrity is another segment that will come later in this discussion. Instrument calibration and sensitivity measurements and records can be managed through LIMS. LIMS is actually Laboratory Information Management System, and are easily accessible for validation purposes. So we have to prove that the systems do what they should through validation. Properly defined and designed system and equipment. Facilities must be designed to prevent contamination, microbial contamination, particulate, or cross-contamination. Properly maintained facility and equipment. Instruments and equipment can be flagged as unavailable if they are out of maintenance or calibration. Very, very important, very critical. If in the production area or even in the laboratory area, there is an equipment which you know that it is not working properly, you instantly have to tag it. You have to flag it. It's unavailable, out of service. And this is a very important quality operations procedure. Define, develop, and prove job competency. How? By prevent individuals carrying out a specific task if they do not have a valid training record. If I'm working in an analytical laboratory, I just cannot go into the production area and start, operating a tablet press or an encapsulator or start making a blending process. You have to have the particular training record for whatever process you are doing. protect products from contamination. Quality and environmental monitoring, continuous monitoring. Functionality is specifically designed to monitor possible contamination at its specific location and sampling points on an ongoing basis. And especially in the liquid manufacturing and in the sterile manufacturing area, you will see that the microbial and air particulate monitoring is on continuous basis during the production, during the filling process, during in-process test. So you make sure that none of the sample actually cross the limits of air particulate matter. Build quality into products. Perform regular audits to ensure compliance. Okay, so we talked briefly about good manufacturing practices is a big umbrella. Now, under this umbrella comes everything. Good documentation practices and good laboratory practices, GDP and GLP. So if you see this, shall I begin in the top left corner or somewhere in the middle? So many choices. So it is actually not so. We cannot have so many choices. We have to follow the GDP and the GLP. So this is not GLP. Good documentation practices to ensure the integrity and reliability of data. GDP lays down the guidelines for preparation, recording, and correction of data. So I'm not disorganized. I know exactly where everything is. The newer stuff is on top and the older stuff is on the bottom. So do you think it is GDP? No, it is not, obviously. Maintenance of the records throughout the life cycle of a document. And there is a particular timeline, how long we have to keep the documents for a particular batch after the shelf life is over. Wow, you see this? And all these years, I just thought you were very proficient. The goal of GDP, similar to the GMP, that is to help the industry to establish consistent practices that will minimize the risk of misinterpretations, errors in communication, and ensuring great product quality. Let's get into the GLP, good laboratory practices. So you see this, he does not know zilch, but he makes the best coffee in the business. So if you make the best coffee in the business, you just cannot step into the laboratory and then you can start working as a chemist. The GLP is a quality system concerned with the organizational process and conditions that is considered to be mandatory with a view to ensuring quality and correctness in the results produced by a laboratory. How important is this? Your test method might not be good, or your equipment might be malfunctioning, and you are testing and you're producing the results 96%, and that is meeting your specs because your spec says it should be from 95 to 105%. So if it is 96, 97%, your batch is okay and you can release it, but probably the result was not good and the paracetamol was actually 80%. There was some kilogram lost during the blending process, or you lost it, you dropped it, some mistake happened, and that actually happens in the pharmaceutical world. So how important this GLP is. So elements of GLP, there are certain elements, there are a lot of elements, but you definitely look into the key elements. And you see this. Analytical methods validation. I just spoke to you about just a few seconds ago about that you are testing a method, you are testing some product and using some particular method. Your equipment might be malfunctioning, might not be, might be excellent condition, might be completely validated and qualified, calibrated, but your analytical method was not validated. So it may not be producing the same result every time. So you have to make sure that the analytical methods are validated. Again, you create worst scenarios, you check robustness, ruggedness, and everything else. It's a whole world of challenges when you actually validate any process, be it like a manufacturing process or it's a testing process or whatever it is. Your laboratory equipment, they're very critical. We just talked about it, have to be validated, qualified, calibrated. Reference standards. If you are measuring the content of any active pharmaceutical ingredient in the tablet or capsule or in your liquid or in a sterile product, you are definitely testing it against a standard that you already have with you. The standards are usually, there are certain agencies, normally, people use like USP reference standards, United States Pharmacopoeia standards, and then you test them against, this particular standard. So your reference standards has to be within the shelf life, within the expiry date. You may not need to, or you make sure that you don't have to retest your reference standard to make sure that the standard is still working well. So you have to have a good reference standard, which is, up to the mark. Sample management is another area. You are getting in the laboratory different products and you are testing all of them. So how you are managing your samples, they don't get mixed up. So that is another chapter, sample management. Stability analytical methods. We talk about stability shortly, about what stability is. People who belong to pharmaceutical, they know what stability methods are, but it simply means that over the period of time, your product is deteriorated under certain environmental conditions or under any other factor that the API may be getting deteriorated. So when it is deteriorated, what degradates are actually being produced by that molecule. So you have some methods developed which are called stability analytical methods. Then you use the products to test against those methods, and then you find out that how stable your product is. I'll tell you more about stability, what stability is actually considered in pharmaceutical industries. Number 6 is microbiological methods analysis. Again, the same thing, like if you are doing the testing chemically and then you are doing the testing microbiologically, then the same thing applies on microbiological methods as well. Failure investigation. There could be certain reasons for a failure of your analytical results. Maybe the reference standard was not good. Maybe the sample was compromised. Maybe the operator, the analyst was not qualified. Maybe your reference standard, or maybe your equipment was malfunctioning, or you did anything, during the sampling, during the preparation of sample, you made some mistake. So you get a wrong result. But if you get a wrong result, are you sure the product is actually failing and you discard the batch and you just throw it off? No. You first have to conduct a detailed and thorough investigation to find out, is this a true picture of the product or not? And again, it's a different topic. It's again a topic that you need to speak about, and then you need to talk about the investigation method and procedure, and to come out with the root cause analysis, and then you find the CAPA, the corrective and preventive action, and then you see if it was a true out of specification or false. You have to have an SOP for this as well. Calibration program, usually maintained by the maintenance departments. They are responsible. They have the detail of each and every equipment from production or analytical laboratory, and they have the plan, preventive maintenance plan. They have the calibration program, and they do come at the time when they have it. There are a lot of softwares available in the world which actually prompts you for any particular equipment that now the calibration is due in maybe 1 month. So usually prior to 1 month, actually there is notification given to the department that this equipment will be recalibrated. And obviously the facility is actually provided with the necessary requirements, the fuming cupboards, the special cabinets to keep the chemicals or microbiological media, or how you are going to use the acids and some hazardous material, how you are managing them. You are trained, and you have the necessary first aid arrangements in the laboratory to provide some kind of immediate help if somebody gets burned or gets some kind of a splash in the eyes. So this is laboratory facility, very important. And products annual reviews. when you keep making the products, the same product every time, and you keep testing them, you become kind of like, and very much used to it. And then we start making certain kind of deviation starts taking place, maybe subconsciously or unknowingly, and we do not consider that if there is any kind of like deviation happening in the process or anywhere. So what is normally done at the end of the year, like if you have produced 10 or 15 batches of particular product, then you review those 15 batches or 10 batches, whatever it is. And then you review, and then you come out with this, with if there is a trend in the result. You started in the first batch of the year with 99% result, and at the end of the year, with the 15th batch, you see that the result is 96%. Though it's still meeting your specification, it's still okay, it's still good to be released to the market. But is there a trend? And you notice that yes, there is a trend. I'm slightly going down. So maybe in next 2-3 batches, I probably would be getting an out of specification results. So what is happening? So this will help you to take a preemptive action and then say, hey, something is going wrong somewhere. Is my material is okay? Did I change? Did I make any change in the raw material vendor? Or did I make any change in the process? Any change in the equipment, in the manufacturing process? So that would help you. This product annual review would help you to catch any probable or possible problem that you may come across in next couple of months, or maybe next 2-3 batches of this product, if you don't take an action now. Okay, quality control and quality assurance. Well, again, they are considered to be the, policemen, the team quality control. You see this logo. This is how actually the QC or QA, mainly QA, are considered in the pharmaceutical industries. I mean, they are taken as showstoppers, villains, hostile, and always negative. And don't take me wrong, this is just the concept that people get scared of QA people the way normally people get scared of the policemen. Now, quality control, and this is very interesting. When I talk about the approach, reactive approach, it was like in the beginning of my career when I come across this terminology, that quality control is a reactive approach. We test it after produced. We checked after produced and packaged. Now remember my comment or a sentence in the first or second of the slides in the beginning, that the risks that cannot be eliminated after the product is produced, right? So this is what we do in quality control. We test after they're produced. We check after produced and packaged. Now, if we find something wrong with the product, we simply throw them out. But did we get anything out of it? Yes. We actually made sure that the patient is not getting a bad quality product and he is safe, but the company is losing. The company loses money, of course, man and machine hours, resources, and obviously the material. So everything is actually lost. 1,000 kilogram paracetamol batch, and you are just going to throw it off. You can't salvage it. Well, in the beginning, there was a people used to, or companies actually used to salvage the batch and then remake them. But since last maybe 10 years or so, US actually has strictly, prohibited this salvaging of product. I don't know if maybe some private companies, local companies still do that, but yeah, no, you cannot really defend that, internationally when the auditors come in and then ask you the questions. So in manufacturing, quality control is a process that ensures customers receives product free from defects and meet their needs. Yeah, at least this is what we get. This is very important and critical. It all began when my call was monitored for quality assurance purpose. You always hear this voice when you make a phone call to anywhere. Now, the quality assurance was established afterwards, and that was the proactive approach. Why do we do that? Why do we test it after we make it and we cannot revert it back? We cannot, the mistake that we have made cannot be, reverted back. So why do we do that? So then quality, the concept of quality assurance came into being. So let's create an environment to produce desired product. let's build the quality within the product. In the pharmaceutical industry, quality assurance is essential for ensuring that pharmaceutical products are manufactured to a safe and consistent standard. So whatever we have been talking about in the GMP, the validation, qualification, for everything, like for starting from the raw material and then the premises, then and of course the people, the procedures, and the equipments, the testing equipments. And we're talking about qualification and validation very, very frequently. This is what the quality assurance is. This is what actually we are building the environment. We are creating the environment to make sure that we don't make a mistake and we don't, end up in a failure when we do the quality control. But we still do the quality control. We cannot skip it. So far we have not skipped it. We are still, quality control labs are still essential and they are working. So we spoke briefly about quality control and quality assurance. So the quality department is done. Now we're talking about the stability of the products and material. Again, there is another terminology that I learned in the beginning of my career was, we are taking care of the quality after release. And you might be surprised with this, and you might be wondering, how can we keep the quality under control after release? Yeah, I also thought that, but then I got to know exactly what was happening, and I was new in the industry at that time. So the purpose of stability testing is to provide evidence on how the efficiency and integrity of a drug substance or drug product, including its packaging, vary with time under the influence of chemical or humidity, light, and radiations. So what do we do normally? We create chambers referring to the area or the country, the city that the product is actually being sold to or being sent to. And then we put samples under those conditions. So we know if we are making products and we are selling it to Saudi Arabia, it might be going to a desert area where the temperature, normal temperature is like 45 to 50 degrees centigrade. And we might be sending another batch to Toronto, where the average temperature, even in the peak summer, does not reach 40, hardly gets to 35, 36, and we get a heat alert. Otherwise, in the winter, we will be, surviving somewhere around -20 to -10 to -30, whatever it is. But the difference, and and somewhere it is too much rain, so it's very, very humid area. So we create the environmental conditions exactly, depicting those particular areas, countries, cities, or probably conditions, and then we keep testing them with some established frequency. In the beginning, maybe every 3 months, and then maybe every 6 months, and maybe every year. And when it's established product, then we do take each batch, we keep under stability testing, and then we know at what particular time, under what conditions the batch is going to be deteriorated badly or affected significantly, which might not be meeting the specifications against which we release the batch in the beginning. And if there is kind of like a serious issue, then definitely immediately the product is withdrawn from the market. And that is why the pharmaceutical profession and the pharmacies are so much, everything is so much controlled that when the doctor writes the prescription and it goes to the pharmacy, they have all the necessary informations belong to the patient. So they can quickly contact, they can check their record. Now everything is computerized, so you have all the data in your computer, so you can immediately check. You get a message from the manufacturer, this particular batch is going to be withdrawn for this reason, whatever the reason could be, and we want to withdraw it. So whatever you have in your store, please send it back and check your patients. So whatever has been, used, it is used. Okay. And obviously you do not get any kind of like adverse effects notification or in letter from anywhere. So you are okay, but you make sure that you do not sell anything else from that particular batch and you take it out from the market. Let's go to the term validation. Again, the validation is a topic where one can talk about maybe 2 to 3 days on this topic. It's a huge topic, and process validation. What FDA says about process validation is defined as the collection and evaluation of data from the, see, it is actually common sense. You produce some particular batches, some batches under very stressful conditions. You create worst case scenario, and then you do some extensive sampling, and you make some very stringent, standards for those samples to meet. And then you start testing them. And when you see that under those stressful conditions, worst scenarios, and very expensive sampling, and with very stringent specifications, you are still meeting the specs. Your product is still meeting the required quality standards. Then you say your process is validated. So basically, validation is which establishes scientific evidences that a process is capable of consistently delivering quality product. Process validation involves a series of activities taking place over the life cycle of the product and process. That is process validation. Creating an evidence trail to show that an action, process, or system leads to a consistent and reproducible results. Similarly, you do the same thing for the equipment. When you install,
Dr. Erfan, we are more than halfway through the presentation, so
yes,
please adjust your speed accordingly. Thank you.
Sure. Thanks for our notification. I will definitely wrap it up quickly. So we do the same thing for equipment qualification. When we install, we qualified that it has been installed according to the manufacturer's, the machine manufacturer's specifications. Then we operate it and we test the operation that is actually operating according to my functional specification that I have initially established, that this is what I want my machine to do. And then we do the performance qualification that, okay, this is what the product that I want to make on this particular machine. So I make that product on that machine and test the product and then see, yes, my product is actually meeting all the specification. So I do the IQ, I do the OQ, and I do the PQ. And again, the topic that I'm trying to encompass in maybe 2 minutes, it may take 2 days. So installation qualification is actually verifies that the equipment has been installed in accordance with the manufacturer's recommendations in a proper manner, and that all of the instruments are placed in an environment that is suitable for their intended purpose. So see the word environment, in an environment that is suitable for their intended purpose. Operational qualification, the action of demonstrating that process, equipment, and ancillary systems work correctly and operate consistently in accordance with established specifications. And that includes even the emergency stop. Believe me or not, you even have to check the machine's emergency stop works, and you can, immediately use it at the time of emergency. And the performance qualification, that the process continues to comply with established requirements and consistently performs as intended for the selected application. Cleaning validation, I have a book on this as well, cleaning validation manual. If you are making paracetamol, and after finishing that batch, you are going to make another batch of paracetamol, you are okay. You only have to make sure that you do not have the packaging stuff available in the area from the previous batch. But if you're going to make losartan potassium or maybe brufen after this batch, then you really have to do some work to make sure that you do not even have trace of paracetamol that might be getting mixed into the next batch of some other product like losartan potassium or maybe brufen. So that is why the cleaning validation process is there. And again, very, very, very huge topic actually that you really need at least 1 day to talk about it. So we need to make sure that chemical and microbial residues of the active, inactive, or detergents are removed. Ingredients of the product manufactured previously. Yeah, so not only the previously manufactured products ingredient, but also the chemical and microbial residues, as well as the detergent that you are using to clean that machine, and the microbial attributes. So cleaning validation criteria that the cleaning process has to meet no more than 0.1%, 1 by 1,000 of the normal therapeutic dose of any product will appear in the maximum daily dose of the following product. You can imagine what is the limit that can be allowed. It's almost next to, zero, nil. No more than 10 ppm of any product will appear in another product. And how do we know that? We test the rinses or we take the swab. No quantity of residue should be visible on the equipment after cleaning procedures are performed. So it's a visual test as well. Other critical steps in GMP are planning API vendors approval. We already talked about it. Packaging materials vendor approval. Similarly, like API, we do that packaging material as well, because the packaging material does a lot. It's a lot of contribution to save the quality of the product. If it is light sensitive, then how you're going to save it? So you're going to pack it in aluminum foil or an amber bottle, whatever it is. Testing and approving the raw material, stability testing, identification of degradates in stability indicating methods. This point I would like to shed some more light on. Identification of degradates. We just talked about that. I mean, when the API is deteriorating, then it might be producing some degradates. So we just don't leave it like that. We test and we find out at the time of R&D that what type of degradates could be possibly produced in this particular product, and how we can identify it, and how we can verify and we can judge that how toxic it is, or what is going to be kind of like effect on the product itself or the patients. So we also try to identify, and we make sure that we identify the degradates in the stability indicating methods. We also call it SIM. Validation, we talk about it. Routine and periodic calibration of instruments, preventive maintenance plan. I may not be a very smart man, but I know what data integrity is. What data integrity is the protection of data from unauthorized and unaccountable changes. Data integrity is defined as maintenance and assurance of data consistency and accuracy throughout its life cycle, and it is represented as ALQA. It has to be attributable. It should be legible, contemporaneous, instantly. When we do it, we write it. When we get the data, we enter it right then. Original, it is not copied, and accurate. Whatever it is there, we have to write it there. It's the shortest actually possible way to talk about data integrity. Otherwise, I attended a training on this 5-6 years ago. It was like comprising 2 days. Okay, change control management. You see what? If you're going to make a change in your process, and if you don't review it, you trust me, you may end up in a disastrous situation like this. You see the change? Red bag has the sandwiches, green bag is your parachute. It was not reviewed. So if you don't review it, so there is a department called change control management. Each and every change is actually reviewed critically to make sure that it is not going to impact the safety, quality, and efficacy of the product. So change control is a monitoring system to review and analyze the effect of a change, to determine the need for corrective action to assure that the system retains its validated status after the change. I embrace change as I would an angry grizzly bear who smokes cigars. Prevent changes that could adversely affect product quality. Assess and monitor the impact of the change. And to tell you the truth, in one of the company in Middle East when I was working, and when they come to buy a new equipment, it was a tablet press, and I asked them, did you start the change control? They laughed at me. They said, change control? It's a new one. We are not going to make any change. And I laughed back at them. And I said, yes, it's going to be a change because it was not there before. So the room next to it did not have that room before. And the machine next to it did not have that machine before. So it's a change for the facility. It's a change for the system, for the environment, for the HVAC system, cross-contamination. And then they had no answer after that. So then they got to know that even for a new piece of equipment, a new facility, you have to have a change control. Okay, in a nutshell, is the basis of quality by design. This is what GMP or GXP, GDP, GLP, everything is GXP. Ensures quality, safety, and efficacy of the finished drug product. Keeps the facility audit ready all the time. FDA can raid anytime in USA. Dr. Umarad will endorse that. But in other countries, they do have to give up prior notification. Oh, okay. I think that's the end. Thank you very much, everyone. If there is any question, let me know.
Thank you very much, Dr. Erfan. I will say, wow. I mean, you have touched so many topics in such a, it's almost like a course which you have.
I told you that.
Summary. It was really wonderful and very much like eye-opening. For most of the doctors, particularly, I will say, in nutshell, actually, in pharmaceutical industry, what we are trying to assure is from material to development, manufacturing, testing, the people's involved, the tests involved, everything is so carefully reviewed, documents, analyzed, made sure that it's validated. When we say the validate means it is fit for the purpose, all the way to the patient mouth. So when you prescribe a drug, you should have a confidence, or even the patient whose life is at risk should have the confidence that the drug will do what it's supposed to do. And I think Dr. Erfan has covered it so nicely. Very proud of you. Thank you very much. So I think we have also Dr. Obadullah. I mean, the pharmaceutical industry is highly regulated industry. I mean, all those topics which Dr. Erfan has touched upon are made sure they are implemented, and every company respect those regulations. So this is the way we can assure the quality, and that certainly is done by regulators. So we are very privileged that we have Dr. Obadullah, Director of DRAP from Pakistan. So I think I will go, before even I go to Dr. Uzair, I think I will go to Dr. Obadullah, if he can shed the light how these principles are implemented in Pakistan and how the industry is evolving and how the regulatory body is also evolving along those lines. So Dr. Obadullah, please.
Thank you very much, Umar Bhai, and for providing me opportunity to share my views. And really, it is a very fantastic opportunity to listen to Dr. Syed Erfan, where he has shared all of crux of the medicine manufacturing, which is essentially required for every manufacturer to be followed. And at the same time, which is all these components are essentially required by a regulator to get it implemented in any part of the world when we talk about. When we talk about the quality by design, then this concept was introduced in 2010, around 2010. And there was a time when we talked about the quality, pharmaceutical quality, and then every person who was involved directly, they say if the drug product contained 100% of the drug, that product is a quality product. And as the presenter has said, that is a reactive approach, which is not a professionally good approach. And then there was a concept introduced that instead of quality control, the product should be quality assured. The quality assured products are essentially required to be manufactured starting from the conceiving of an idea for the manufacturing up to the putting of that very product into the shelf life. If we say what is the layman concept of quality by design, so it's very simple. Like when you conceive an idea to manufacture a house, then you put all the things on the piece of paper or on computer right now. You put the design, you put the all the requirements which are required for the house, like steel requirement, brakes, each and everything. Then you apply various softwares for the calculation, and then you design it in a 3D model as well. Same is the case with the quality by design for the pharmaceutical. When any generic drug manufacturer wants to want to develop a drug product, then it is required that that manufacturer should put all of its concept and requirements on the piece of paper, starting from the selection of active pharmaceutical ingredient with all the components which Dr. Erfan has shared: stability testing, stress testing, impurity profiling, stability indicating method, and all the things. And definitely all this should be transformed through the help of various software, through a model, which is, we can say that can lead to the development of a quality assured product. If we see that this quality by design is primarily applicable for all the generic drug manufacturers. And now ICH is very seriously thinking about to develop some of various guidelines for the quality by design, although they have issued some of the draft guidelines, but they are in the phase of finalizing some of the guidelines for the quality by design to be adopted by the manufacturer and to set them as a rule of thumb for every manufacturer to follow. So again, referring that it is essentially required that every pharmaceutical manufacturer should produce quality assured pharmaceutical products, and every regulatory authority should follow all these principles. And if we see the what the presenter has shared with us, all these components are present in every GMP guidelines of every regulatory authority. Now it is the phenomena and of the implementation, that how we implement all these points. So I really congratulate my all APPNA merits for selecting a very, very fantastic topic, and Dr. Erfan, which he has shared all the crux of GMP, quality by design. So thank you very much, and over from myself.
Thank you, Dr. Abdullah. Uzair bhai, you have a comments or questions from the physician's perspectives? I think that would be good to hear from you.
Thank you, Umar Hayat and Dr. Erfan. Thanks a million, because you have been always very instrumental to promote the quality, and author of so many books. We Pakistan feel proud to have professionals like you, because you are author of so many books. So you are promoting this knowledge about the quality of pharmaceutical, and it's a lot of information for myself as well. You know, when we are discussing about part per million, the residue, and like 1%. So this is an eye-opener for us as a physician, that what's the importance of traceability. And I would also like to know, Dr. Abdullah, from our regulatory perspective, where we are in terms of monitoring the residual detection and the analysis, and what we have been learning, what we have discussed about the good quality in manufacturing, in distribution, and in testing and everything. So I know the quality and sometimes the cost go hand in hand. And developing countries, they have different challenges. And Dr. Abdullah is also in the World Health Organization task force on quality and auditing the different regulatory bodies. Recently, he had an opportunity to inspect the Philippines and attend also a Chinese one. So keeping those countries like Philippines is like us, of course, China is far better. But this particular aspect, because that remind me about a pharmacovigilance issues which took place in Lahore, Pakistan Institute of Cardiology, which led to the death of like hundreds of people. So from the mixing traceability, what is the regulatory intervention in Pakistan? Over to Dr. Abdullah, please.
I will even request what was the action or regulatory authority has implemented post that event, because it's also very important. It's not just what happened, but how we can prevent going for in future. Thank you, Dr. Badalati.
Yes, in fact, you have identified a very valid point, and probably if we say that what was the good thing of that PIC, and that was all the horizon of the regulatory regime has been transformed to the establishment of a regulatory authority. Previously, we must admit that post 2012, the implementation of regulation and the harmonization to international practices was not as which was required at that time. And then in the Punjab Institute of Cardiology, and there was another incident where there was cocktail therapy of some cough syrups, and both of these incidents took place at about same time, and after that there was establishment of regulatory authority. And you know that after the establishment, we have put certain concrete steps which were essentially required to be taken. And one of those steps was international harmonized practices, which we have adopted, and implementation of pharmacopoeia specification adaptation for all the registered products. Previously, it was not up to that mark, which is essentially required for pharmaceutical manufacturing. But now we can safely say, as Dr. Erfan said about the impurity profiling, stability integrating method, now all these things are as required prior to the grant of registration, like pharmacopoeia testing and all the components for the impurity testing as well. So these points are essentially required. Another thing which we have done, that is the regulatory flexibility as well. And that regulatory flexibility is regarding the contract analysis and contract manufacturing, which is a global phenomenon, because we know that every pharmaceutical manufacturer can't manufacture or analyze each and everything by themselves. So what the DRAP and federal government of Pakistan has done, then we have introduced a contract analysis provision. And now if a pharmaceutical manufacturer doesn't have any facility for the analysis of any impurity, then that can be done by any other licensed pharmaceutical manufacturer. And I give you an example of the nitrosamine impurity, which was very common with the valsartan and metformin. It was a global issue about 2 years back, and we saw that the various pharmaceutical manufacturers across the globe, that these nitrosamine impurity was identified. Now, nitrosamine impurity can't be tested by every manufacturer, because for that purpose you need to have gas chromatography with the head spacer. So all these things which are essentially required for the testing of any pharmaceutical product, including impurities, now we try to implement, and all the manufacturers get it tested from any of the licensed laboratory which have the facility. So we can say that after all these regulatory transformations, now we are on the path of all the regulatory compliance, which we can say which is required for the pharmaceutical manufacturing. And another point which is very important, that is a good manufacturing practice implementation. In my opinion, humble opinion, GMP implementation is a continuous process. If a pharmaceutical manufacturer is a GMP compliant today, we can't say that GMP compliance will continue to be implemented after 10 days as well, because GMP is not only the 1, 2, 3, 4 things, all the things which the presenter has shared with us. It's the material management, it is the personnel, it is the manufacturing facility, it is the validation, it is the calibration. So GMP compliance is a continuous thing, and all these components are required for the manufacturing of a quality assured product. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Abed. I think we have 2 questions from the audience, and we should address those. The one, first of all, the excellent webinar. This is from Dr. Fazal. And his question is, is there any way to assess the work of quality control and quality assurance to avoid the bias? So is there an oversight to?
Well, yes, that is where the regulators come in. All the regulatory bodies in the company, within the company, yeah, no one can challenge QA, but QA is the only department that actually is going to face and take up everything on them when any regulator come in, or any regulatory body, be it FDA or your local regulatory bodies, whoever. So then QA is the one who has to defend everything. So even if the anomaly happens in production and it is caught by an auditor, any regulator, then it's QA department has to defend it. So that is why QA makes sure that they don't actually end up in a situation like this. So the only power or authority that can ask questions to QA is the regulatory bodies.
Yeah. So I think the one thing we can add is also QA never reports to the production because it's really the conflict of the interest. So QA oversee basically the production, and then QA will have to defend because they will have to do
exactly.
That's right.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Excellent. And then I have another question: is how these cancer-causing contaminants are found after so many drugs are generic, and how it happens. But it partly touches also the nitrosamine Dr. Badullah mentioned. I mean, it's really GCMS. I mean, because you need to test it such a low level. So it's not just the GC, but GCMS. So I think the testing labs really need to bring those technologies in-house. But would you like to comment on that one, Dr. Erfan?
Can you repeat the question, please?
So how these cancer-causing contaminants are found after many drugs are generic?
Oh, okay. Well, see, I mean, this is like I mean, if it is like adverse effect, so I'm not aware of this incident. Where did it happen? But yeah, if during the R&D work or if during the testing, the adverse effects are not, or the clinical trials, the adverse effects were not actually determined effectively or efficiently, then it can always happen. And it actually happens in some cases that, I mean, some products are over a period of many years and come out with kind of like some kind of adverse effects. But you cannot really have any concrete answer to this, that how did it happen? It may happen, the molecule can change itself because of any significant change in the environmental conditions. We may not know at the time of development and research, but we come to know about it after a certain period of time. I mean, this can happen. This has happened actually. Like
probably I can take Dr. Irfan that, because it's related to the mutagenic impurities or carcinogenic impurities.
Yeah.
But normally, during the process, I mean, when you develop a product and you have the chemical entities, you take into account the starting materials, the intermediates, the impurities and degradants, and you do the assessment. So there is a guideline, what they call the ICH M7, which basically you do the assessment. First, you do the assessment based on their structure. Then you look if those have been already tested in the animals, and do they cause or are the source of any of those mutagenic or carcinogenic effects. But if not, then you go through, there is a battery of tests which you can assess. So this is how basically you cover all aspects, like the degradation, the impurity, the process impurities. I mean, if there would be any residues left, or any of the impurities which can be produced during the process, or the degradants during the stability or the shelf life. So those has been assessed. Now, when it comes to the generic products, so the process of the API should be more or less the comparable. And then we make sure that the impurities which show up in the generic API should be either equivalent or less, and not be the more, because those impurities are already qualified and well established. So yes, those contaminants are assessed, controlled, monitored, tested all through the development, but once in the manufacturing, the rest is the contaminants like the carryover, as Dr. Erfan was mentioning, is really taken care by the cleaning method validation, and that should be in place in every organization. So that would probably be the answer.
I want to add one thing here, if you permit me.
Sure, please.
Yeah, in fact, the point which has been raised about the cancer mutation and all the things. In fact, the active pharmaceutical ingredient or drug substance is a very important point from any aspect which we talked about the contamination and impurities. In fact, after the innovative drug product, then many companies come and they start manufacturing the drug substances as a generic drug substance product. And active pharmaceutical ingredients manufacturer try to adopt various synthetic routes for the availability of that very product. And here comes where the innovator has not done some testing, and the generic drug substance manufacturer, when they alter the route for the manufacturing of the substance, then it always require all the testing steps required, not only for the chemical, but rather for the biological orientation as well. And sometimes some of the manufacturers of the drug substances, mostly in China and India, they do some shortcut steps, and where they don't perform some of the testing for bioassays and all the things, and there they skip some of the testing, and then we can say that those materials are can cause some sort of cancer or some other diseases. Thank you.
So, Dr. I mean, we are going over time. It's already 10:06. I will say one question which I just came across. I mean, it's amazing when you talk to the Chinese manufacturer or the Indian manufacturers for the API. And Dr. Badullah, this is for your information. I was shocked. They have the different price for selling the API for regulated market and for non-regulated market. And this is also partly because our manufacturers, tell them that we are not selling into the regulated markets, so we want the cheaper one. It also means the quality of the cheaper one is a compromised quality. So I think we should not differentiate whether it's a regulated market or non-regulated market, because for human being, okay, so we are not selling into the regulated market, it's our inability to meet the standards of those regulated markets, but we should not allow those manufacturers to compromise the quality of the incoming API.
Yeah.
Incidentally, I had a chance to audit a company in China, and that was probably this type of company which was producing metronidazole for cheaper grade, and that facility was disgusting.
Yeah. I mean, it cannot be two standards. I mean, it's one standard, and that's with the patient in mind. So I think we already went over time. Thank you very much. Thank you to audience. For the closing remarks, I will give back to Dr. Azad. But I want to ask, is there any question from the audience? You can please raise the hand and we can give you the mic, or you can type and we can try to address the question.
Thank you, Dr. Umar. And first of all, Dr. Syed Erfan, we are extremely grateful on behalf of APPNA Merit for your valuable time, for your inputs, for your sharing. So that's quite a missed topic. We are also thankful to a lot of participants who have shown interest, and some of them, they are showing up for the first time. So that shows the value of this topic to them. Many of them, that's why I was writing that they should introduce. So that's really great. And we are grateful to Dr. Ubaidullah because he participated on a short notice for his valuable input, and the team who managed all the secretarial services. I mean, the APPNA Merit support team, we are really thankful to them. for seamless activity. So with this, we say goodbye and very happy weekend to all of you. All the best wishes and yeah.
Happy 14th August, by the way.
Yes, 14th August, which is the most important one. So thank you to all of you. All the best.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.